Hi, I'm here with Eric K from Eric K and the Surfaronies. How are you, Eric?
I'm fine, thanks. And how are you today?
I'm excellent now that you're here. I listened to your album on Bandcamp, which I'll have a link to in the description. There's a ton of stuff on there
Yeah.
for you. But what I want to concentrate on is your surf music.
Okay, sure.
With as wide a variety as you have of music, the surf stuff really sounds authentic, and is to me it would be difficult to have your hat in so many your hand in so many areas and then yet pull it off so well. Tell me about
Oh,
why surf music.
well, thank you, first of all, for listening and for enjoying. um, so the surf thing, well, it kind of somehow oddly sort of traces the history of the internet. So, like, I don't know what it was. Time flies 15, 20 years ago when SoundCloud or whatever it was came out, and there's all this music available suddenly. And so I'm listening to it. I just go on the internet and put on a podcast or an internet station and listen. And I was listening to a musical act that calls itself Tame Impala. And they do like psychedelic rock and, new age stuff and whatnot. And I enjoyed the music, and I looked up a little bit of information about the musicians. And what I read at the time was that Tame Impala was basically a solo artist who basically was just working in a studio, that he did have musicians that he worked with occasionally, and occasionally he would do live shows, and he generally used the same supporting musician. But he was basically a solo act working in the studio, and I guess 10 million other people, this light bulb came on and said, well, I can do that. I can afford that. I have the time for that, and I have, the equipment for that. And so I'm going to start making music and see what happens. So I began recording just in my little homemade home studio, playing all the parts. And I thought, well, I'm getting good enough that maybe I can put some of this stuff out there. And I was thinking, well, how do I do that? How do I tag myself? Everything needs a context, right? It's got to have some context. Have you ever seen the movie? There's an old movie called, well, it was done in England by an Italian director, and it's about a photographer. I can't remember the name offhand. Anyway, somewhere during the course of this movie, the main character is down at a disco in swinging London. It's like 1968, and Eric Clapton and others are up on stage jamming, and all the British teens are like, wetting their panties. Oh, Eric Clapton, Eric Clapton. And he gets disgusted with his amp, and he smashes his guitar, and he throws the guitar neck out into the audience, and all the kids are scrambling, fighting to grab that guitar neck. And they run right out of the disco and are chasing each other down Barnaby Street or whatever it is there in Piccadilly Circus. And in the commotion, one of them drops the guitar neck in the street. And a few minutes later, a couple on a date walks along, and they see this guitar neck in the gutter. They pick it up and say, huh, and throw it away, because it had no context to them. It wasn't a precious item. Anyway, so you got to have a context. And I was thinking of all the genres. I can sing, but I don't like singing anymore because I just want to do original music, and singing would require lyrics. So I said, I don't want to work on lyrics. I don't know about that. There's too much other stuff that I have a good start in. So to heck with lyrics. So I was looking at instrumental music that's within a realm that I would perform, which would be rock or pop related. And I like the music going from the rockabillys in the 50s up to the stuff that you could put on the radio now. I like it all. But I thought, well, I'm going to stick to what, really is in my heart, which is the late 50s through the 60s, maybe the early 70s. And I wanted to be instrumental. And as a kid, I had three idols: Beatles, Beach Boys, Ventures. And I thought, well, great. I went out and bought this huge collection of Ventures music and listened to it and thought back in the day. Like, yeah, they were doing rock, they were doing surf rock, and they were doing other kind of instrumental pop songs, and they'd kind of rock them up a little bit, you know, movie soundtracks and everything. And said it's very versatile music. So I started listening to the surf rock on podcasts and so forth on the internet and reading about the bands that are going on now and listening to them. And same thing, it's a pretty wide variety. It's a wide open genre, and it seemed like a welcoming community. And I know there had been some static. I'd sent you an email earlier, and I didn't want to sound defensive, but I have, you know, there's still a little static out there between like live bands and independent artists. And, you know, I can understand that, but I just want to make it clear to the listening public that I'm not Milli Vanilli. I'm not trying to be a poser or something. I'm just an old guy in my studio doing my thing. And I found that maybe the surf rock thing would support that. And then I just started trying to write some surfy sounding rock music, and it seemed to work. It's like, you know, this is my version of it. You know, I kind of think of the bands I heard growing up as a kid. You know, it was everywhere. I grew up in Honolulu, Hawaii in the early 60s. So, you know, the surf music, of course, was everywhere. And music in general is everywhere. It was a very musical place back in those days. You couldn't swing a dead cat without somebody doing the hula or playing an ukulele or what have you, you know. So the music, you know, was always there. And I was thinking of like these garage bands, some of them pretty good, and they'd just do extended jams. And the surf guitar players would do their, you know, hey, I know this scale and I know that scale, and I can make it work with that chord, and so on. And so that's my holy grail. It's like extended surf jam that is listenable. But I like so many other types of music, so I throw them in there. I don't find it difficult at all, because all the pop music, it's really pretty simple. I'm not saying it's easy to do, and that some people aren't really good at it, and that I have to work at it, and I don't think I'm that good, but nonetheless, the concepts are pretty simple. You know? So I felt like, well, again, going back to my inspiration in my youth and my childhood even, you know, walking around Waikiki and listening to the music drifting out of the clubs and the hotels, you know, the sort of fake Hawaiian lounge lizard music, and, you know, the popular dance tunes of the day, the top 40 and the Motown and all that, you know, it was all there. It's all in me. So I guess in a roundabout way, it all coalesced to do, I'm going to tag myself indie surf. You know, I'm not doing other people's classic surf songs, but I'm trying to get that sound out. So I guess, you know, that's more or less an explanation of what I'm doing.
Oh, nice. So, what has been, like, Bandcamp's a great place to like kind of connect with the community, especially through like tags and keywords. Like, what was, when you got involved in that community that's on Bandcamp when it comes to surf rock and surf music, surf guitar, like, you know, did you find, and I'm sure you found it was welcoming, but how many people did you find where you're in your situation where they just wanted to dig right into it and do it themselves, and then, you know, see how that goes first?
Well, I don't know really offhand. I mean, not really paid attention to that. I could just say, you know, just offhand, it seemed like there's a lot of guys doing what I'm doing. If that's what you're asking, it seemed like and some of them are people like myself, an older person who just played music my whole life and flirted with performing and doing something more professional, but for some reason never put it together. And, I'm at a time in life where, knock on wood, I have time to work on it and resources. It's not expensive now. See, it's the technology. And so I could also be like a teenager who doesn't have a lot of money, but they're really into music. And the technology is affordable now. So I've been on the peripheral of the music biz since I was a child, but I've never actively participated in it. But I know from many friends and acquaintances who were professional musicians that one of the reasons they were able to do that is that they had the right equipment, and also, surprisingly, a lot of them knew how to read and write music, which that's irrelevant now. The computer will do that for you. And of course, a lot of musicians, especially folk musicians and pop musicians, we've always just been sort of by the ear anyway.
Yeah.
But back in the old days, if you knew how to read and write music, that was a big plus. If you couldn't sing very well, but you owned a PA, you were the singer. You passed the audition because your equipment passed it. Nowadays, it's much different. And I think all that's good. And it doesn't scare me. And indie guys like me sitting in a homemade studio, that doesn't scare me. AI is what scares me. It's going to put everybody out of business, potentially. We'll see what happens with that.
There are people...
AI can't surf, so...
there are a few...
You gotta be real,
There are a few outfits or people that use AI to create surf music, and I am interviewing one, so we can kind of get this season on the podcast, and I'm kind of getting I want to put out there, at least from their perspective, that story.
Fair.
Yeah, because a lot of people are like wondering, like, what the hell's going on with this? This guy put out tons of music in like a 1 year span, and nobody's ever heard of it. But you know what I mean? Like, he's creating this anonymously, and it's AI.
Yeah.
So I have somebody like that coming on the show, and it's going to be interesting to see their point of view, as opposed to the majority.
That gets back to the whole notion of context. What's the context of this music? My music, where I'm coming from, it's, it was just the music of my life, and it still is, And, I go to sleep at night sometimes, and I can still feel the ocean. I don't know if you're into surfing per se, but, you get in touch with the ocean, and that may sound corny or overblown, but it's true. And, when I'm going to sleep at night, I feel this ebb and swell of the ocean. I don't know if that comes off in my music, but I'm trying to put some of that in there. And I don't know how AI is going to do that unless it wants to go out surfing and live on the North Shore for years.
Yeah, that's the one question that's the one question I have about AI is you won't feel the nuance and the improvisation along the way, or the little things that happen once in a song, and it's never the same twice.
Probably not. Maybe not. But I'm sort of scared that you might. I'm sort of scared that it might be able to make art and music and everything else in a way that we couldn't differentiate from human. And I don't know, somehow that it just makes all of life seem sort of empty. But we'll see, what happens.
Right. It is a concern, especially in the surf community, that people can do that.
Yeah, and then people are trying to make a living doing it. That's really going to hurt them. And I'm not saying that I don't want to make money at it, but I'm not a young guy who's got rent to pay and I got to get another gig. I'm not that desperate yet.
Yeah.
And my hat's off to people who love music so much that they're willing to stick out those tough times. That's why I never did the live thing. So I've been playing folk guitar and Hawaiian slack key, and just my friend and I, Jerry. Hey, Jerry, if you're there. Then I heard Leo Kottke. He came to town, and all my friends were raving about him. And I bought an album of his, Sight Unseen, Unheard, and I loved it. Gave me goosebumps. So I spent the next 2 years trying to finger pick like Leo Kottke. And I was getting kind of good at it, but I met a guy, young guy, John Donovan, great guitarist. He heard me doing my thing and said, why don't you come jam with us? He was doing like what people were doing back in the early 70s, like Jeff Beck and Spiral Gyro. It was a fusion time, fusion rock and all that. And they loaned me an electric guitar, a Gibson SG, and showed me some of the stuff they were doing, and I played rhythm guitar with them, and I learned a lot. When I graduated from college, I went to college, believe it or not, and I graduated, and I said, well, I can sell my 12-string, buy a decent electric guitar, learn the chords for 40 pop songs, go out and find a bar band, and see if I can do it. And then I thought, no, I'm afraid. I don't want to starve. I don't want to, I've got an education. I could get a better job. So I chickened out, So my hat's off to the people that are out there doing it, hats off, I support them and I listen to them, and I'm not trying to crash their party, And then I see this AI stuff coming, and it's like, whoa, that's going to bust my bubble, But who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows what'll happen?
I just don't think, the organic or human torch or soul in music, I don't think that can be replicated.
I hope not. I hope not. But also happiness and joy,
Yeah.
That's to me why I like the surf music, and also why a lot of the earlier 60s music and late 50s, there was a sense of joy. And I still hear that now. In fact, I was hearing a piece yesterday by, I think they call themselves Joy and Happiness or something like that, doing a surf number. It was really refreshing, and it was joyful. I liked it. So that's an aspect of music also, the emotional aspect, in general. I don't know how AI will handle that, but again, we'll see. You can't stop progress, for better or worse, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like you lived in Hawaii for a little bit?
Whoa. Oh, no. That's like my hometown. Little biography here. I was born in South Bend, Indiana, my mom's hometown. She happened to be there when I came along as a few weeks early. But no, I grew up in Honolulu, Hawaii in the 60s, early 70s. And I thought it was a golden time, for me anyway, for my demographics, a middle-class kid. And just going to the beach and all the great music. And, it was a better time in my life. And Honolulu was booming. Everything was new, and the future was going to be great. We had a lot already. And, they like Ala Moana Shopping Center at the time was the biggest one in the world. It's right there by Waikiki, But at the same time, you had this beautiful cosmopolitan international city, but it was still small enough you could get around. The crime rate was pretty low, and you could access wilderness very easily. You still can, not the beaches though. The beaches are all crowded now. Back in my day, you could go to a beach in the morning and there wouldn't be anybody, even the surf spots. But so my friend moved out to Sunset Beach. We were all friends. His family and my family, we were all friends, and we would go out there every weekend we could and spend the weekend at Sunset Beach. And the big surf, the winter waves were just being discovered by the outside world at that time. And that was exciting to see that, as a little kid, to watch, these filmmakers showing up and international surfers and the surfing competition and the music. But it wasn't necessarily all surf music either. I remember Quicksilver. I don't know if you know who they are, but they were like a 60s rock band, did sort of radical lyrics, sort of, peace, love, and overthrow the institution. They had a place out there, and we'd listen to them practice and write their songs. And it was just a golden time, for me. But after that, I moved over here to the mainland, as we called it in Hawaii, the contiguous 48. And lived all over the country. I've lived in Oklahoma, New York City, Texas, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, New Mexico, on and on. Kind of like I noticed that people from Hawaii and Australia almost go through this rite of passage where they travel, for in their youth and then settle down somewhere. I settled down in the desert. So, people laugh at me, when they hear my background and say, "Oh, you made a mistake. Why did you want to come here, brah?" It's like, well, to me, this is exotic. Like, I lived in Hawaii till I was like 27, moved back and lived there another 12 years when I was in like my 40s. And yeah, I'm old. I'm an old people, sorry. And it's great. I love it. It's my home, but you can't go back. It's all changed, and there's no more aloha. I remember riding on the bus with when I was living there a second time in the early 2000s, I guess, or early 2000s. And I was riding on the bus with my late wife and a friend of ours, and she was a local girl, Japanese, Hawaiian ancestry, real nice girl. And we're sitting there, and a woman was getting on the bus, a city bus, busy bus. A woman's getting on the bus, and she trips getting up the stairs to put her money in the fare. And I got up and helped her, an elderly Japanese American woman. And when I was a kid, that whole bus would have sprung up and helped that old person. And if you didn't get up, someone would come along and hit you on the back of the head and say, "Get up, boy, help the lady, respect your elders," So anyway, I helped this woman, and she said, "Oh, thank you." And, I sit back down, and I looked at Colleen, my friend. I said, "There's no more aloha." And she said, "No, Eric, it's gone." So that's sad, but there's still people with aloha in their hearts. It's still a nice place in a lot of ways, But I've lived all over, and, I still, home is home. The surf is in my heart. That sound is in my ears.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much, Eric, for coming on the show and telling me your story. You have an interesting take and story behind your life and how you're connected to music that is refreshing to hear and kind of new for the channel. So I want to thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, cool. Well, I want to thank you for having me on and doing what you do. I'm going to be more of a regular on your PI site because I want to see, for example, what this AI guy has to say. I'm interested in that. And, I just enjoyed watching some of the people on there, like Mark Malibu's, like one of my favorite. I do want to give a couple of quick shout outs, like some of the bands, I don't want to start naming names because I'll forget some, but like to the music I'm listening to, the bands that are out there active now, there's a lot of really good ones, a lot of good young people and a lot of older musicians who may be like rehashing their sound and trying to channel it into the surf sound. So I think that's great. I'd like to see the genre grow and open up a little. And, the more the merrier. That's the way I look at it. But I'm not trying to make a living at it. Then again, if you want to buy my records, that's cool. I like that.
The link will be in the description for everybody to visit your Bandcamp site. I would suggest everybody go and sample it and then support Eric on his journey in surfing. Perhaps by doing that, you give him an opportunity to make more, because I listened to the record this week and I thought it was amazing.
Cool, great. Well, I do have a little website. It's one of those dime a dollar websites, but it'll just direct you back to my Bandcamp site. But yeah, anybody who wants to listen, listen. And I think I'm pretty generous. I think you can listen to a lot of it before it'll shut you down. Shut people down if you don't buy it. I think, I give people the maximum so they can really check it out and see if it's something they want to buy or not. So.
Awesome. Awesome.
All right.
Thanks so much, Eric.
All right. Thanks. It was nice meeting you. Hope to talk to you again, and good luck with all you're doing. And peace, love, and music.